Hello, we're live. I'm pretty sure nobody's watching, and that's okay. This might just be one of those where, you can people can get bored one day and decide, oh, I haven't seen that. Let me listen to see what they're saying
Catch
about
the
this.
replay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there's a religious holiday or something on Monday. I'm not sure what it is. Shame on me, but
Oh, I didn't know.
so maybe it's a long weekend. Maybe it'll be a long weekend for some folks, and they can play around with some other stuff to watch, and they might watch it, and that would be just fine. Um, Cherie, how are you doing tonight on this nice Friday evening?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm glad it's Friday. It's been a rough couple of weeks at work, and
Yeah, yeah, you've been busy.
so
Tell us what you've been doing.
just I had this one case that we've been working on for months, and we ended up coming to an agreement, but it took a lot of back and forth to do it, to get the agreement so that both sides were happy with it. And so that was one. And then just we had court a few days, and then one of the days I had to hurry up and do an order to show cause because the person was going to be evicted the next day, and just made it barely in time. We saved him from being removed,
Oh
at least
wow, good for you.
temporarily. Then we're going to have a hearing, and and then the judge will decide one way or the other. But she didn't
Yeah,
get a fair hearing the first time, so. And it's just been a lot, like people calling up crying because the cops are there to remove them, and it's just stressful sometimes, but I love it.
well, sure. I mean, you'd have to love what you're doing to be an attorney in any field of litigation, as far as I can, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned, because there is nothing. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but I can imagine that there are a lot of parts about litigation, um, trials, being an attorney in general, that aren't very enjoyable or pleasant. So, loving the people, the clientele that you have, and or their causes, I guess is a better way to say it. There's a lot to be said for that. So I think that's pretty cool. So
feel like you're making a difference. It is, and we
yeah,
don't always win, but we
yeah,
win
but
enough that it makes it worth it.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I'll let you decide if you want to share what field you're in, but in your field that I happen to know what it is, those are pretty, I don't want to say immediate responses or resolutions or outcomes. They're not immediate, but they're serious ones. I mean, they
Yeah,
can affect a person's lifestyle.
it's landlord tenant, but and people go, well, oh, so you help people that don't pay their rent? No, there's a lot more to it than that. If,
Yeah,
if there's a lot of other reasons, that there are problems between landlords and tenants, and we
yeah,
help with
of
that.
course.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of times it's the landlord that's the dickhole. You know what I mean? Like
yep,
the tenant could be doing everything perfectly legal and be responsible and be doing what they're supposed to be doing, but you get some nasty landlords who just want to, you know, jack up their rent prices unreasonably, or just all kinds of things. I'm a renter. I've been a renter most of my adult life, so I know the kinds of things that go on, and it could be scary.
yep.
But so I'm proud of you for that. I think it's a great field to be in.
Thank you.
Before I go on with what we're going to talk about tonight, you and I together, this is going to be, I guess, more like a vodcast. What I've heard, um, what I've heard it to be called is a not really a podcast, not really a live or a stream or whatever, even though it is all those things. But this is going to be a what is called a vodcast, which is a video podcast, and where it's just the two of us, and we're just kind of go back and forth probably, or you're really shy and respectful so you don't interrupt people when they're talking. I'll end up probably doing the most talking. You're going to have to jump in just because I know how I am. Very, very chatty Kathy. My mom used to call me Chatty Kathy. She bought me a damn Chatty Kathy baby doll when I was a little girl because of it. So, but before we get on with what we're going to talk about, I just want to ask everybody, first of all, to please like, share, subscribe this video. This is very important video. So even if you're not watching this live and you're watching it on replay, this is, to me, something that I am incredibly passionate about. And I'm learning, trying to learn a little bit more how YouTube works and how to use YouTube to my benefit, to give as much information that I can, factual information, to my viewers, to those who have subscribed and those who are interested in what we normally talk about. But I've learned that a big part of that is viewer comments in the comment section. After a video is over, my comment section's always open. And so, it doesn't even have to be very long. It can just, it can be, I have one person who's sub to the channel who usually always goes in after the comments are opened up and puts a heart in. And, any comments that can be made about the topic that we're talking about, or any question at all that you might have about what we talk about normally and this tonight, I'm learning that I remember hearing people talking about algorithms, and I'm like, what the heck is an algorithm? That's just something that that YouTube's trying to use to get more people to use YouTube. I had no idea, and I still don't really know, but I have learned that there really is importance in algorithms, and that comments in your comments section are really important to that algorithm. So I know that now, and I'm trying to teach myself how to do different things in YouTube, use the tools that I have. And so please do, if you can go into the comment section after the video and just make a comment, that really will help. And of course, liking and subscribing and sharing. Hi Colette, it's great to see you. I know this is kind of last minute, but hopefully you'll find our topic tonight interesting. So comment, like, subscribe, share, all those things that I used to find, I don't want to say annoying, but repetitive, I guess. It really is important. We want to get Daniel's story as much out there as we possibly can. We want to get the facts out there that as much as we possibly can, because that's what our channel is doing, is getting facts about Daniel's case out there. So like, comment, share, subscribe, all those, what do they say? All those YouTube things.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. And I guess it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So anyway, tonight though, we are kind of going off track just a little bit. And Cherie and I are going to talk about something that is important to both of us, and I know it's important to the rest of the folks who are usually on the panel. And because this was so last minute, by the way, Kay, Jack, and Susan, and Alice, they all have plans tonight, so that's okay. I don't have a life, so it's fine. It's fine. I can do this. And Cherie has a life, but she's also very dedicated to this channel as well. So on that, kind of going back to the note to YouTube, on Tuesday, when we did our live show about the preliminary hearing for Rosetta Great, when we started that, we were at 452 subscribers. And it was just like, just trudging up a hill, just trying to get more subscribers. And so Foul Play put a message in their community page and really, really boosted overnight, less than 24 hours, really did boost up the subscriber count, which was great. And sorry, I didn't say hi. Hello, Paul from RI. I'm assuming that's Rhode Island. Paula, sorry, I'm so sorry. Paula from, I'm guessing, Rhode Island. Welcome. It's great to have you with us. And so, but it just did an immense amount. I can't, I've lost count now of how many people we got in less than 24 hours. And then Ripper Jack put a post on his Facebook page asking all of his folks to come. I mean, listen, if you don't already know this, Ripper, like on my very first live that I ever did, Ripper was a surprise guest that I had on the very first live that we ever did. And that's been, I think it'll be 3 years ago next month, or this month, maybe this month. And so he endorsed us then. He came on as a guest on our panel that night, and it was amazing. And that really helped as well to get me started for sure. And he endorses our channel. But he put a message on, or he put a post on his Facebook yesterday, I believe it was, and he also boosted the subs on our channel greatly. And so I appreciate Ripper as well. Hey, Under Your Scars, it is great to see you, as always. Welcome. And so I want to say thank you to Jack, or Ripper, and to Jack and Foul Play, or Foul Play in general, for doing that and helping us. And we are currently now at 484 subscribers. And just Tuesday, we were at 252. So thank you to all of you who have joined.
Yay!
And, yay! Really, really excited. So, okay, enough piddling around. I have a very dry throat. I've got allergies or something, so I'm going to be sipping a lot of water. Sorry. But the topic that we want to talk about tonight is it's one that's very, I don't know how to say it, important to, I know Cherie and I both. Yes, Foul Play is awesome. Thanks, Paula. And that is the death penalty. And Oklahoma, Alabama, and Texas have the highest execution rates in the country. I've never done any investigation about Alabama and Texas. I know Missouri is another one that has a high execution rate. But I know, you kind of hear about Texas just because it's Texas. You know how big they are, and how, death penalty, pro-death penalty, the state is in general. Oklahoma is very much the same. And the difference, or at least that I have been able to find or hear or read or see, is that of those three, Oklahoma seems to have the most wrongful convictions, and wrongful convictions whose prisoners are on death row. And we know that Richard Glossop has been fighting, his execution for years. And right now, there's no updates on Richard's case. But
Still waiting to hear from the Supreme Court, aren't they? The U.S.
They're still waiting on the Supreme Court. So right now he's at a stay. Richard is, for, I don't know, the 8th time, 6th or 8th time. It's you know what, Paula, this is what Oklahoma should be doing. I'm just going to tell everybody right now, I'm going to have a really hard time staying on track because I'm really upset. But Paula says we don't have it due to hanging an innocent man, John Gordon. Well, you know what? Oklahoma has executed innocent men in the past. And if they execute Richard Glossop, I am 100% confident that they will be executing an innocent man. And I'm questioning the innocence or guilt of who they executed yesterday in Oklahoma. And his name is Anthony Sanchez. Now, I take notice when Oklahoma is executing somebody. I don't study the case of the person they're executing. I don't really, dig into it or anything like that, like I did Richards. Like I did Julius Jones. Julius Jones, somehow managed to, get his sentence, what is that called? Commuted? Not commuted. Commuted? Is that what it is, Cherie?
Commuted. Yeah,
commuted. Yeah, so Julius Jones was fortunate enough, we're still not there with Julius Jones, but he was fortunate enough that the governor, who is a hypocrite, in my opinion, among other things, Kevin Stitt, commuted the sentence from death to life without the possibility of parole. And so now, his team and his followers and his supporters are, fighting to get that life without parole thing overturned. Anyway, so fortunately, Julius Jones was not executed at that time because I believe that would have been an innocent man. Cherie and I and Kay have done videos in the past where we believe, we proved, we showed from evidence that was years later provided that Oklahoma has executed innocent men, put innocent men on death row, innocent men in prison for life, due to serious offenses in the crime lab, in Oklahoma City Crime Lab. A big part of that was due to, I shouldn't say a big part, really the only part in that is that, trying to find what I'm looking for here to share on the screen. I don't know why it's not there. I'm really sorry. Like I said, I'm not prepared tonight. Oh, here we go. Okay. This man right here is the big reason that Oklahoma City, or Oklahoma rather, has such a high record of executions just all around. Cowboy Bob Macy. He was named, let me read this little section here. He was referred to, Robert H. Macy served as the district attorney for Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, from 1980 to 2001. During his tenure, he was personally responsible for 54 death sentences, leading him to become one of America's deadliest prosecutors, according to a 2016 Harvard study. So he prosecuted a lot of high profile cases, most namely and most recognizable, the trial of Timothy McVeigh, and others as well. He prosecuted the state. I can't think of what it's called. The steakhouse. I don't think that's what it was. Steakhouse. Stockhouse. Anyway, it was a restaurant in Oklahoma City, or Norman, Oklahoma, or something like that, where some people were murdered, and I'm trying to think of what it was. I guess we did a show on it. I actually have a video on it. But anyway, he just, he seemed to have, and I know Jack refers to this as the same thing, but he has like a bloodlust of like
Bloodthirsty Bob. That's what.
bloodthirsty Bob. Yeah, bloodthirsty Bob. Like, it's from reading about him and trying to look into him a little bit more. It's as if he could have done it, he would have put every person on death row, no matter what their crime was. I'm exaggerating, but he wanted blood. He wanted to execute people. I want to read this paragraph. Macy's aggressive approach to prosecution also drew criticism from some who felt that he was too quick to seek the death penalty and that he sometimes cut corners in pursuit of convictions. His tactics in some cases were later called into question, including his use of jailhouse informants and his alleged withholding of exculpatory evidence, also known as Brady violations. Now, we were reading, and we stopped at chapter 10, I think. We were reading a book called Death and Justice by Mark Furman. And say whatever you want about Mark Furman. Everybody can have their opinions. But this book that he wrote is quite phenomenal, in my opinion. It's about the death penalty in Oklahoma, and Bob Macy and his favorite crime lab analyst, Joyce Gilchrist. And we've done a couple of shows on her as well, pointing out her bad acts. So it's not like, this isn't just, it's not just Julius Jones escaping execution and Richard Glossop on yet another stay of execution. And it's not just about this man who was executed yesterday, Anthony Sanchez. It's not just those three. There's a long history with Bob Macy and the crime lab analyst, Joyce Gilchrist. And it's not a good history. If anybody, if you get a chance, check out the book. In one of the videos that I'm just going to reference a little bit here tonight, there's a link for the book, Death and Justice, by, let's see. Let me see if I can figure out where it is. Yeah. I'm going to copy and paste this from this chat from a couple of years ago. And I'm going to share this with you. If you get a chance, read this book. It's not a long book, but it is full of interesting cases, and that's what it talks about all the way through it, is cases of wrongful convictions and wrongful executions, I guess is the only way to say it. Check out that book. It's extremely interesting. I believe Cherie would agree with me because we both have read it together mostly.
It's eye-opening. It's horrifying how many corners they cut, and don't seem to care that they might be putting away innocent people, killing innocent people.
Right. And going out of their way to put people on death row. So we're going to get to this Anthony Sanchez story in a bit, but I want to show you. Cherie did an amazing It's really, Paula, it's really, really, um, it's a good book, and it will make you angry. You will, especially if you're very familiar with Oklahoma, or if you're completely unfamiliar with Oklahoma, uh, you, you're going to just be um, shocked and angered by it. So, not that I want to do that to people, but um, let me try to find this video. Is it in Death and Justice? Jessica Kristen Montero. And I will, okay, here we go. So I'm just going to play a small portion of this. This is a man that we know was executed in Oklahoma right after the moratorium was lifted. So for 7 years, Oklahoma was on a moratorium for execution because they had botched several executions, horrific botches during executions that were just awful and torturous and painful. And it had to do with the drugs they were using for their I'm at a loss for words. I can't think of my words. I'm having a hard time using my words tonight. What do they call that? It's not a hanging, it's not a fiery squad, it's a lethal injection. The drugs they were using in their lethal injection were the incorrect drugs or bad, out of date, or I don't remember the details, but they were on a 7-year moratorium where they couldn't execute anybody. And I'm telling you, I think that Oklahoma was having a hard time. They were dying to execute people, chomping at the bit to execute people. And I think the list was up to about 20 when that moratorium was lifted, people that they had ready to execute. I mean, they would have executed one a week if they could have at that time. Richard Glossop, however, and several others filed a lawsuit, which is a whole other topic, but they filed a lawsuit which gave them all a temporary stay of execution. But the lawsuit, they lost in their lawsuit, and so now everybody's stays have been lifted, and now they're just kind of, I don't want to say systematically, but it feels like they're kind of systematically executing these people one by one. And I know there's been times when it's been a couple of months, but this particular individual, Malcolm Rent Johnson, he was a bad guy. Not saying that he was a good guy whatsoever. Super bad. Did horrible things. He had been convicted of rapes and burglaries and armed robberies. He'd been convicted of a lot of bad crimes. He had been convicted. He had served his time on the crimes, from what I can recall, so he had done his time. Nonetheless, he was bad. He was a horrible human. I don't think that just because you're a horrible human and you've done horrible things, that doesn't mean that you did the next horrific thing. And I'm not even going to get into what's going on right now in another community. I'm not even going to talk about it, but it's not any different than this. Malcolm Rent Johnson he was executed almost within a week, if I'm not mistaken, of the time that the moratorium was lifted. Let me get some comments here, because there's few enough of us in here and few enough of you watching. I don't want to. It's my show. I can do what I want, right? People can watch or they cannot. Those of you who are with me now, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Paula says, I'm empathetic to the nth degree. Under Your Scars says, even Dr. Phil spoke at a presentation about Richard deserving to be released. Yeah, he did. He did. Under Your Scars says, we treat animals better. Stupid, long process to die. It's a stupid, long process. But when you look at what they're doing to, or what they have been and are doing, have done, have been, and are doing to Richard Glossop, it's insane. And I've mentioned this several times whenever we talk about Richard's case, that he's been to the death chamber 3 times now. He's had 3 last meals. Actually, he's probably maybe had 4 by now. So that is so cruel to me. But at the same time, thank God, thank God he wasn't executed the first, second, third, or fourth time. He's still fighting. So, but the torture, the mental torture for me would just be more than I could handle. Paula says the Arkansas mass execution was sickening. Had to use them before they expired the next month. Good God. That's just the meds, before the meds were expired.
I didn't know about that one.
I didn't either.
Was it recent, I wonder?
Was that a recent case or a recent situation, Paula? That's crazy. Yes, Under Your Scars, and like I said, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, exactly like what's being done right now in Stephen's case. Under Your Scar says, euthanizing my dog at 17 years old was quick. I don't get it. Humans have to suffer. Yeah, it's awful. So I'm going to play for you this section of a video that we did a couple of years ago. And it was in 2017, she says, and it was 7 inmates. Good God. Oh, that's just horrible.
Wow.
Now I'm going to have to look into that because that's insane. Excuse me. Hi, Nan's Life. Welcome. Nan's Life says, I really have a hard time understanding why in this day and age there is still a death penalty. I completely agree. Oh my gosh, they executed 11 people or 7 people in 11 days. That's just mass murder. It's just horrible. I can't even comprehend that. That's just horrific. Yeah, I agree, Nan's Life. And I know I live in Utah. We have the death penalty here. And I know it comes up every session or whatever that they talk about banning, eliminating the death penalty in Utah. And they never do. But I can't tell you the last time somebody was executed in Utah. We have the death penalty, but it is rarely ever used, as far as I can remember. I've lived in Utah since 1980, and I can think of 2, possibly 3, but I really think 2 executions since then that I can think of. So, it's, anyway, yeah, like I said, I apologize. I apologize for being so scattered, but like I said, I didn't do any planning or organizing or anything. So Paul says there's a documentary. She's going to look up the name for us. That would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, so to prevent myself from rambling any further for a little bit, I'm going to play this little bit of this. And Cherie did all of these slides for us, and so hopefully there's not too many comments that I scrolled along the bottom because there's good information here, but here we go.
This is another one that was a really rough one for me. This one, Cherie, do you want to read this one?
Malcolm Rent Johnson. He was convicted of rape and murder and executed in 2000. Gilchrist testified at his trial that semen recovered from the victim's bed was consistent with Johnson's blood type, and hairs found on the victim's bed matched hair from his arm. Johnson's request for a defense expert to counter Gilchrist's testimony was denied. After the Gilchrist scandal erupted in 2001, his attorneys had the evidence examined again, and no sperm was found on the slide taken from the victim's bed, but he was already executed, so it was too late.
Yeah. Hideous, absolutely hideous. Now, to be fair, let's see, I'm going to try to share something else here. Any of you guys who are familiar with screen sharing and all of that, it seems to me like there should be they should be able to share more screens than having to stop and go out, stop screen sharing, and then come back and then go back. It just seems maybe that's the.
Okay, that's enough of that. I haven't listened to this to recall, what the whole thing is about. But I would let's see. Is this I'm going to share this in the chat for you guys to watch at a later time if you'd like to. So, hey, Mose, it's great to see you. Let me get back over here to Streamyard so I can have some control. Okay. Life and Death Row, BBC3. Okay. All right, thank you. So it's great to see you, Mo. I was glad you could make it tonight. I appreciate you. So that's just one one case. That video has several other cases that Cherie outlined for us, and we researched. And most of the research we started with from what we got from Death and Justice, and then we researched further to see what information we could get on the different cases. But it turns out that Malcolm Rent Johnson, you heard what was discovered after he was executed, that there was not even any DNA slide to look at. There was no DNA slide, yet Joyce Gilchrist in the crime lab said that the DNA matched Malcolm Rent Johnson. Now, the topic or the subject in the book, I believe, I think that's where we read this, was Bob Macy's attitude about, not Bob Macy's attitude about this particular case, but different cases that when somebody would be exonerated, that he put on death row or, life in prison or whatever, his demeanor was basically, well, he did all these horrible things. He was a bad man. He raped in the past. He burgled in the past. He assault and battery in the past. And, we have him convicted for all those things. So even if he didn't do this crime, he did all those other bad things. So he's right where he needs to be. And I mean, that was Bob Macy's attitude. And it's in Death and Justice. That's another thing. I mean, if you want to go back through and start listening to the Death and Justice series that we have, I'm not sure if they're in a playlist. I'll check that and see if they are. If they're not, I'll figure out how to get them in the playlist. But that's also a good series. And we don't read the book online or in the video, but we do discuss the big main points of it. So let's see. Mo says, didn't they stop making meds for execution purposes? Well, Cherie, I'm going to let you comment on that. I know very little, but I know something.
I don't know a lot about it, but I did hear that they were making a lot of the. It's my understanding that they made a lot of the companies that were making these drugs didn't want to make them for that purpose, so it made them harder to get. So that's what I've heard and read about it. I'll have to look a little bit more to get the facts for you, but I've heard that much.
Right. And so That's not stopping Oklahoma. They are determined to execute by lethal injection and, execute in general. I mean, but I can't remember now, but I believe that right now Oklahoma is only approved for lethal injection executions. I don't think they've been approved for firing squad or electric chair or anything like that. So they're using their own. They're using a different concoction or cocktail or whatever they call it to execute people, and it's disgusting. I mean, if you have to work that fucking hard to execute somebody, to execute people, maybe you're doing something wrong. I mean, if it's that much of a, or I don't know, it's such a, it's very, very frustrating to talk about because, we don't, we look at it and we wonder when's the end point? Where's the end point of this? Where does it end? How do we abolish it across the United States? Hi, TJ. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So it is very inhumane. And my stance on that used to be, well, the way so-and-so murdered that child or killed that family or, blah, 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 whatever the case might be. I used to have the attitude of, well, that wasn't very humane either. So why should we be humane? Well, I've learned a lot since then, about humanity and about human dignity and decency. And it doesn't compare that way. So yes, I've heard that. I've read about that in Ann's life. Canada has death with dignity, which is a medication, but we don't have the death penalty there. I've read some odd stories about the death with dignity program or process. So at any rate, that's a little bit about Bob Macy and Joyce Gilchrist. I only shared with you one story from the horrible crime lab that was run by Joyce Gilchrist. But I wanted to tell you all that first of all, Richard Glossop was I'm just trying to get comments here. She was very ill. That's another whole topic that, is way out of my realm of what I can and feel comfortable talking about. But, there's a time and a place for things under your scars. There's a time and place for things. And I'm not going to get into it any further than that. Because then I'll be off on a whole other show. TJ says, I didn't even know about it. Found out looking up Glossop and found it by accident. Yeah, TJ's the one who sent me the story that he was going to be executed this week. So I started looking at it. But when he first sent me that, I didn't realize that it was a questionable case. It wasn't until I looked at it yesterday morning, about 2 hours before he was to be executed, that I realized, oh, there's an entire website for him and his innocence, and he's claiming his innocence. He claimed, he still claimed he was innocent all the way up to the very last second. And, when you get, again, if I haven't already said this, I don't know anything about this case. All I know is that there is a huge push to not have him executed. And he had been saying from the day he was convicted that he was innocent, or charged, I guess, that he was innocent. And he has a website, and he has a huge support group. And, it's easy to say, well, everybody who's in prison or on death row that says they're innocent, they all do. You know what? That's probably true. but I've watched the last few executions that they've done in Oklahoma, and none of those men went to the death chamber saying they were innocent. They all, they accepted what they had done and, move on. Let's get this done. And so when I see somebody like Julius Jones, Richard Glossop, possibly Anthony Sanchez, and absolutely, you guys all know this, 100% Daniel Holtzclaw, when I see that much noise about it, I have to look at it a little bit more. So there was an online vigil yesterday morning on Facebook that I can't even think of this is how much I haven't paid attention to this case, that was held at the prison. And there was another group in front of the governor's mansion that was held for Anthony Sanchez. So I looked at a little bit of stuff, and I looked at the website, and I watched a little video that's on the website. I believe I have that ready to, I might not have it ready. Let me close Richard Gossip's out. I have a brand new monitor sitting in the box in my bedroom, and I still haven't opened it up. And every time I look at my laptop and I've got 25 tabs open, I kick myself because I should have that damn thing open to be using it. But trying to find, I might have closed it by accident. Dang it. Yeah, I think I did. Dang it. Well, at any rate, there's a website also dedicated to Anthony Sanchez. And I watched this little 15 or 20 minute long video, and I thought, okay, I have to check this out. From what I can tell, he was convicted of murdering, of kidnapping, assaulting, and raping and murdering a college girl. And so that case was cold. It went unsolved for 7 or 8 years, and they couldn't find any. There was no DNA hits on it. There was, they were looking at a particular person, and but they just couldn't make a connection. What I want to do is share with you. This is an article that I found in The Intercept, and I want to share that with you and just kind of hit some of the major points in it if I can. Okay. So this is called The Secrets DNA Keeps. DNA evidence sent Anthony Sanchez to death row, but did he actually solve the crime? Okay, this is a really long article, but it's a really good article. And so just a few days ago, it was published by Liliana Segura. But it talks about kind of a timeline. And Charlotte Beatty couldn't say when she began to suspect that her boyfriend had committed the murder that sent his own son to death row. So this lady, and she does an interview on this little video. I'm so mad at myself for closing that. And now I can't remember where I found. I can't remember the name of the website, but I'll try to find it and put it in the description.
What website are you looking for? The one about Anthony?
Yeah, well, there's that. There's it's a website about Anthony's case, or I can't remember what it was called.
I just went to find one, and it said it wouldn't go there. I don't know. Maybe they took it down. I can try again.
Yeah, I'm trying to, and I think that's how I found it. Actually, I think I Googled him. And I think that's how I found his website. Just looking here, sorry guys. Because now it's all just saying, now it's just talking about his execution. Let me just see if I can find it though, just looking here. Now it's just all executed. Oh, it just makes me sick. It's very possible that they took the website down, now that he's been executed, which is sad. Forgiveness. Free Anthony Sanchez, I think this is it. freeanthonysanchez.org.
Yep, I just found it too. So.
Okay, good. Okay. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll play this little video. And you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. You guys rather see that than have me trying to read from this article? I think that's a better idea. Let's get some comments really quick, though. Under your stars says, if I'm terminal, I want to decide if I want to stay longer or not myself. I agree. Hey, Case by Case, it's great to see you. How are you? Happy to have you here. Let's see. Mo's call says, if you decide to go or stay, it's a hard life for family members, no matter what you do. Lots of cancer in my family, and some just gave up. I'm right there with you, Mose. I've been through a lot of cancer and deaths in the last 5-6 years, and it's no matter what you do, exactly what you said, no matter which choice you made, it's hard on who's left behind. And, so it doesn't matter. There's pain. There's just going to be pain. You can't really avoid it at all. So, hey, Millbilly, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to play this little video, and I'm going to let you guys just watch it for yourself. I don't know. I might have to stop and chat. I don't know what the whole YouTube copyright thing is going to be on this, because I'm not real familiar with that. But so I'll try to figure it out. Let's see.
You think they'd want people to see it, so maybe they won't.
I know. Maybe there won't be a strike, right?
The creators, I mean.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. It's about 22 minutes. I'm just going to play it because it was, I don't know, it definitely made me sad when I watched it yesterday morning, and I definitely had thoughts. So here we go.
On December the 20th, 1996, Julie Buskin was abducted from her apartment complex, driven out to Lake Stanley Draper, and executed, murdered on the shore. For years, authorities had very little evidence and no suspects to go on. They found a trace amount of DNA on a leotard that was found close to the body of Julie Buskin. Using that trace amount, they claim to 6 or 7 years later get a random match on Anthony Sanchez. Anthony Sanchez was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death based on that trace amount of DNA.
Sorry, I'm so worried about getting a copyright thing. I don't want to get in trouble. But this is really interesting because in a very short period of time, 22 minutes, this film, they give, just the right information, and I don't know, it definitely led me to believe this is a very compelling case for this guy might be innocent. So if they shut me down for copyright, then I'll just restart. You'll have to just hang on while I restart, but we'll see how far we can go with this.
It seems like the prosecutors, I mean, they just made up a story. I don't know where they got it from. They wouldn't let none of his family come in the trial. He had to sit there by himself.
What was Anthony like growing up?
He was a happy kid. He had a smile on his face all the time. I mean, he had the biggest grin. If you look at any of his pictures, he's got this big grin. And he was real loving. He's real soft-hearted. From a baby on, he was a good kid.
When he got a death sentence, what was your reaction? What was that like?
It was the worst day of my life, and there's nothing you can do. As a mother, you want to help him and save him, and it was bad. It was just heartbreaking. He had an attorney, a real hateful attorney. I tried to tell him, you need to defend him, and he said, well, we're not trying to get him out right now. We're just trying to keep him off death row. Well, why would you not bring up the evidence that's going to prove his innocence instead of just trying to get him off death row?
So you feel like in the midst of the entire trial and the entire process, there was nobody defending Anthony?
Nobody.
When I met Anthony Sanchez last fall, I sat down with him and he began to talk to me about innocence. And I didn't really know what to think because I hear about innocence from these guys a lot.
At death penalty action, we take every case in order. I mean, we address every single execution, whether they're guilty or innocent. So, this one sort of came onto our radar as one of the 25 in Oklahoma. But when Jeff came and said, this guy says he's innocent, I think he's full of it, I said, great, we'll just do what we usually do.
But, as I kind of pushed more and more into this case, again, it started becoming stranger and stranger as to how this was pinpointed to be Anthony.
But then Jeff came back and said, I think he's innocent and we need money for testing and an investigator and all this. I didn't know what that was going to take, but I sent a text to one of my best and longest donors, and within half an hour she wrote back and said yes. And that's what allowed us to get to the point that we're at today, where there's an independent investigator who's putting his jobs with the state on the line to come out and counter the narrative of the state.
My name is David Ballard. I'm a CLEAT licensed private investigator. I am also an expert witness and an instructor on courses approved for investigators and law enforcement. For the last 11 years, I've worked as a private investigator on crime scenes and on evidence and forensics, ballistics. Pretty much my expertise was anything violent crime. Back in December of 22, I was contacted by one of the attorneys for Anthony Sanchez. Needed someone who was familiar with DNA and crime scenes, follow up on some evidence and try to reach out and find other DNA evidence and have it tested. Well, initially, when I got some of the documentation or some interviews and the sketches, the first impression was the sketch.
I keep muting because I'm a vapor and I don't want you guys to hear me vaping, so I mute when I'm not speaking. Sorry. Pay really close attention. I don't think you'll have to pay close attention, but take note of these sketches, this sketch and witness sketch and what, I just want you to take note of it.
That nothing about the sketch appeared to match Anthony. Then went through some of the witness statements. It very quickly had to move to trying to locate an item with DNA for his dad, Glenn Sanchez. So involved reaching out to Charlotte, his ex, and start from there. But when I met with her, she was very open to talk to me and was very, forthcoming with information. And then I told her that had been informed that at some point she may have heard a confession or a statement, and it turned out to be 3 different incidents where Glenn Sanchez had confessed he had killed Julie Buskin, that he should have done a better job getting rid of her, and that Anthony was taking it like a man.
It was probably about 2014. He said, at least Anthony's taking it.
I do have to give you guys a trigger warning. This is a pretty graphic interview. Things that she says are pretty graphic. So just so you guys are aware.
For me, he said, I'm the one that did it. And he said that, she had a tight ass. And he kept on bragging about it because he said no one will ever know. It seemed like every few months he'd talk about it. And I'd ask him, why are you letting Anthony suffer for it? And he said, well, because he can handle it. And he said, Anthony doesn't know. Whenever I die, no one will know the truth about what happened to Julie.
Did Glenn ever give any sort of details or anything like that when he was making these types of comments?
Yeah, well, he would turn around saying that he tied her up, he hog-tied her, and he said he raped her.
But as I was interviewing Charlotte, she was the first one to tell me that one of the reasons Anthony didn't finish school was because Glenn would beat on him so bad. Sometimes he was just too beat up to go to school, that he put hands on her. He would, literally just go off, black out, and become very violent. So now you've got he's got a propensity towards a potential for violence towards women and other people. But sometimes, you like, well, that's interfamily. Not that it makes it better, but where do you go from there? It was when she started talking about his sexual behavior too that really stood out. Aggressive when told no, had issues with performance and blamed it on the women. A lot of times making them do things face down, didn't want them looking at him, including trying to force women to have sex with animals, sodomizing them with handles to hammers, waking up and being bound, and him assaulting them.
The abuse grew with time. It was sexual abuse. He figured if a baby can come out of it, a fist can go in it. And if I screamed, he would go further. And he'd go in my butt too. And, I was afraid to say something because he'd always say, if you say anything, if I don't do it, somebody else will, I'll kill you. I'd come out of the room crying or something, and or else I'll flip out on my kids over him. Why don't you get rid of him? Well, I was afraid to. I got where I was scared myself that, are you going to harm my kids? Or are you going to try to harm me?
I mean, you take that piece and then you add in the fact of, according to Charlotte and then Glenn's own words, the detectives, he went by Draper all the time. Matter of fact, in one of the interviews when they're asking about Anthony, they're trying to establish if Anthony was familiar with Lake Draper. They asked Glenn, have you ever taken Anthony fishing there? And he said, yeah, something like when he was a kid. They said, where'd you like to go? And he tells them, oh, I was over there by the bridge. And he was referring to the dam. He talks about the dirt road, the gravel, and off the beaten path. And the detective put in his report that he thought that was interesting because that is right next to where they found Julie Buskin's body. I believe Anthony's first attorneys even thought it might be Glenn because Anthony got upset about that because at that point no one had any inclination that way. But we're not the only ones. The detective also was looking pretty hard at Glenn, but couldn't get there at that time.
I'm just kind of curious about what you think of that. Usually when I look at a sketch, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't really see it. That I can see this kind of looks like him, but I don't really. When I looked at this sketch, I saw Glenn. I saw Anthony's father in that sketch.
And he looked way older than Anthony, the drawing. So
yes, absolutely. And Anthony was arrested for this crime when he was 18 years old. So when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, whoever that sketch artist was, in my opinion, did a fantastic job. That that I, so much so that I could see the father's image in that sketch.
Stuck with Anthony Sanchez because the poor kid, they already had this whole narrative built up. They already were able to take the DNA, manipulate it, make it fit, and they didn't take the time to investigate Glenn Sanchez.
There's a lot that goes into any kind of forensic evidence. You have to be very careful with how you move it, package it. They started with a cowboy hat, but they got a mixed DNA sample, which also aided to what my position was on the DNA, is you cannot get an exact 100% single profile when you have mixed DNA, because you can't always separate the two. And you can even get DNA that mask over another to where you can't see it. They came back with a cowboy hat in February stating that it was mixed, but they could move to the toothbrush. And in March, they were able to do the toothbrush and pull a single profile. So the profile we got was a male profile. But again, this is from his hygiene kit, but we have to ask the question, making sure that it's for sure Glenn's DNA profile, but based off what we've seen. The next thing was comparing it to what we had already supplied of a DNA chart that was given to me from Anthony's legal team. And I mean, matter of fact, when I first saw that document, I think we had a meeting right after, and I had an issue.
I'm so tempted to grab a screenshot of that or see if it's on the website somewhere and send it to Dr. Silkman and just have him take a look at it. Just with what he did with Daniel's testing in Daniel's case was amazing. So I'm just curious if he could just look at it from what's that?
I said, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I'll look at
see what he's got to say about it.
Yeah, I'll look in the website, or I put the link to the website in the chat. We'll look at the website and see if we can find it in there in the documents section or something. If not, I'll grab a screenshot of it and send it to the doc and see what he has to say.
As soon as I saw the first table that had all the DNA profiles, and that was because Julie Buskin had matching DNA numbers in her loci that matched Anthony. And not just Anthony, but a prior person who'd been looked at as a suspect in 3 separate loci, complete matches, which that should not happen unless you're a relative. In this case, the only matching numbers came from the leotard. That was interesting because that in the statements of the evidence that was found is that there was no items that did not contain mixed DNA. Matter of fact, the leotard contained what seemed like a smear of potentially fecal matter and what they believed to be spermatozoa. So that was odd to me that they, one, got 100% match on any item, especially since some of the other items, underwear, things like that, did not have those kind of matches. And you would assume the underwear she was wearing was going to have a lot more of a match to it than anything else.
It's interesting. You keep on hearing the state say, well, you've got to trust the DNA. The DNA is going to show us the truth. And it sounds like from where you sit, your persuasion, the DNA is showing us the truth. And that is that Anthony is innocent.
Yes. Well, one, the DNA, the sheets that we have were someone generated. They're not like the benchmarks you get, the lab notes and all the details that would be in there of how they broke it down. And the thing to remember is, I believe 5 different technicians worked this evidence. And from 97, when the first test was done, they were able to pull 4 loci on a profile, to all the way until 2000 when they do a PCR, and now they get, I believe, 13 loci is what they said. But as they're going, they're swabbing and doing this and testing this evidence. Typically, and I think I've given you this reference that I've heard before, imagine taking a picture and putting it on a copier and keep copying it and keep copying it. You don't get a stronger picture by doing that. And there was a swatch cut out of the leotard that was used for testing, and a swatch, 2-inch by 2-inch square that contains the most evidence. And typically you swab those. You don't actually do it on that item. And that plays an important fact because at one stage in this case, when DNA was challenged, it was a letter that I'm in receipt of now, the DA's office, saying that items were consumed and were no longer available. And I believe we had a conversation about that. And I said that could be a problem because you should swab every bit of it. And they said swabs were put away in storage. Also, one of the evidence items that they listed that were taken, this is when Melissa Keith comes in, is she said she received one large envelope and literally all the evidence was stuffed into one envelope.
So all the swabs, everything
Everything.
stuffed in one envelope.
One big giant envelope.
What was going on in Oklahoma City at the Oklahoma City lab during that time?
During that time was not a really good time for Oklahoma City Crime Lab. That was during the Joyce Gilchrist days, where it came out that she had altered evidence or falsified reports. And I forget how many, it was a bunch of cases, drug on for a number of years of them figuring out how many cases she actually did it on. But she had either falsified evidence or just straight lied about it on the reports.
So as you go down this DNA trail and you begin to realize, that there are these issues, you've got Melissa Keith at the trial on the stand saying this is a 100% match. How possible is a 100% match under normal circumstances? And then how possible is a 100% match under these circumstances?
So 100% match is, you're going to I'm put a swab in your mouth, take it out, and it gets packaged right or directed right there at the lab. Then you're going to get a very clean match. But from a crime scene with mixed DNA, and then 8 years later, after it's been handled how many times? Your chances of success on a 100% match are going to get real slim. I've only received partial, at this point, because of what it related to, it was Melissa Keith's testimony at the trial. And initially she talks about how the match worked and all this, but when she gets pressed on, and I believe it's in the transcript, that's where she states that, well, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but basically she didn't get a full match, but based off her knowledge and training, she felt like it was good enough or a strong enough match.
Greetings. This is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, spiritual advisor for Anthony Sanchez. I'm joined by David Ballard, who is the investigator on the case. In this video, we want to talk about why a shoe print that they cited is erroneous and should have never been included as evidence.
Yeah, as you said, Jeff, there was a shoe print that was found at the scene, and then it was stated that it matched potentially a shoe print of a style and type of shoe that Anthony Sanchez may have owned at one time. However, again, you're talking about a mass-produced shoe, and even if you go with that and say that, yes, Anthony could have owned this type of shoe, the problem is that it was a size 9 shoe, and Anthony Sanchez, even at the time when he was just 9 months past being 18 years old, that didn't match his shoe size at that time anyway. And I believe the reference to a shoe was something from much earlier on in his life, which was a very common shoe type. And you also have to go back to, there's been a lot of developments in processes in crime scenes, and a lot of these techniques, they can be supportive, but they're not absolute. The questions I have for this case are, one, the DNA, the lab notes, the collection process, chain of custody. There's a lot of documentation missing. 2 would be any kind of photographs or anything of how the packaging of the evidence was. Next would be the likelihood of getting it retested, because that's the best way to answer the question. Retest the evidence, compare it all now and see what we have. The fingerprints. If you didn't get Anthony's, compare them to Glenn's, compare Glenn's DNA. At least then it'd be ruled out, because what if it isn't Glenn? There's always that chance. A fingerprint from Glenn Sanchez on her car would be huge, because there should be no reason whatsoever his fingerprint should be there. What about the pajama bottoms? What about the other underwear that are all in her car and not readily accessible? But all those came back nothing to Anthony, and they said they found all kind of DNA evidence on that stuff. So where are those profiles? Instead of trying to make the evidence match Anthony, let the evidence tell you what it's trying to tell you. one of my requests would be for them to test Glenn Sanchez against CODIS, because one of Glenn's own family members stated that they actually turned him in on another case because they saw a sketch that they thought resembled him. And it was a woman who was assaulted and murdered not far from Norman.
So there is suspicion out there that Glenn Sanchez could have been a serial killer.
It's what, as I understand it, we have evidence right now in the possession of the state that could exonerate Anthony Sanchez, and not just exonerate him, but potentially give us the suspect, the person responsible. And if we have that capability and we have the evidence, why in the world would we not do it?
Do you think there is any way possible that Anthony could be guilty of the murder of Julie Buskin?
No. He was what would you call it, like a sweetheart. He just, a lovable kid.
We want to know the truth. We know that Anthony Sanchez did not do this. The evidence is clear. But even if you still believe that he did do this, shouldn't it be investigated on a much deeper level where all of these questions that we are bringing up just aren't left out there? You see, if Anthony Sanchez is executed, the truth will be executed. The questions will remain and the truth will be executed. So we are asking you to stand with us to give life to the truth, to give life to a deeper investigation, and to give life to the memory of Julie Buskin.
So I'm Abe Bonowitz with Death Penalty Action, and we operate hand to mouth, but what we have is massive impact. And it's because of people who support the work, who make a donation, go to deathpenaltyaction.org and donate, that we're able to do this work. So I'm asking you today, if you value what we're trying to do, and if you are able to, please chip in, whatever you can. If it's $5 or $5 million, you give it to us, we will use it to create change, to stop executions.
It's rough. It's really hard to watch. Yes, TJ, on the flip side, they targeted Holtzclaw, one of their own. I don't know. You know, that little short video, I'm telling you, it gave me every reason to consider that this man may have been actually innocent. If I had known about this case before, you know, much sooner than what I did, I probably would have spent more time looking at it, just because I don't trust Oklahoma. I cannot fucking trust the state of Oklahoma. And for those of you who live in Oklahoma, and I know a lot of you who are here in the chat, who are subscribers to my channel, who are in my Discord, who are part of Foul Play, I know a lot of you from Oklahoma, who live in Oklahoma, who have lived in Oklahoma, and I know that's really harsh to say, that I don't trust the state of Oklahoma, but they have proven to me that they are not trustworthy, going at least as far back as Bob Macy. Yeah, I have to question everything they do. And when I hear about a new case coming out in Oklahoma, you know, particularly a heinous crime, I look at it. I don't necessarily deep dive it, but I take notice of it because I don't trust them. I don't trust anybody in that state.
The government.
The government, yeah, the government. Yes, thank you, Sheree. I know people in Oklahoma who I love, so I have family in Oklahoma, so you know, yes, you're right. The government.
What got me too is I can't believe a father would let his son, you know, suffer for something that he did. That it's wow.
Yeah. If that is indeed true, absolutely. That is not a human being. It's just not a human being.
The mothers, at least not all mothers, but some would rather have themselves be there suffering than to have their child suffer for something they didn't do, especially. You know?
Yeah. And you know, I mean, not frequently, but I've read about cases where a mother has tried to take the blame for something that her child did to protect the child, you know, from going to prison or jail or whatever. And I'm not saying that I'm sure there's, you know, fathers would do the same thing, but this individual was, according to Charlotte, Yaddy was completely content with letting his son take the fall for the murder that he committed, if that is definitely the truth. It's just inhumane for another human to do something like that. Go ahead, Sheree.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. So Under Your Scars says, I watched a show a while back where two men on death row, 35 plus years, friended. One always said, I know you're innocent. After 35 years to find out he did the crime. Oh, wow. You mean the one saying that he knew the other guy was innocent was the one who committed the crime? Oh, jeez. That's just... Yeah, I know TJ's looked at this case a little bit too, since he discovered it. He said, sad what happened to Julie, but just as bad that they probably put the wrong guy to death. I have reasonable doubt just from the shoe size. Yeah, absolutely. I do too. I just, a lot of reasonable doubt. And in the Intercept article that I linked in the chat a little while back, I believe it's the Intercept article. You know, they call into question the shoe. The article does. It's very detailed, this article, and so they show more pictures of the shoe. I'll see if I can find it in one of my many open. Here we go. Let me share it with you while I look for it. So let's see, because it kind of breaks down all the different things. Am I sharing this? Yeah.
That's pretty long. I was just going down through it, and there is a picture of a shoe.
Yeah,
the shoe.
So I couldn't stop reading it because it was so compelling to me. And yeah, it is tragic what happened to her. But, you know, just like Teresa Halbach, this is Joyce Gilchrist. Um, yeah, this woman, oh God, I don't even get me started on her. 'Cause that's a whole other show too, and we'll get back around to her. So yeah, that looks to me very much like Glenn. Let's see, there's pictures of the shoe. Doo-doo-doo. So, okay, here we go. Now, this is the picture of the shoe. Now, by the time, according to this article and other articles, I'm sure, by the time that this was found, the wind had already blown sand and stuff over the shoe print, and it couldn't be used for, I mean, they couldn't actually do any testing of it. But like TJ said, and like what the article says and what that little video tells us, Anthony wore and he says in this article, Anthony says that from the time he was, I think he said 13 or 14, he wore a shoe size 11 and a half. The shoe print size allegedly that was found was a size 9. And it could not be definitively matched to the actual shoe. Well, that's not the actual shoe, but like the shoe that Anthony found. Exactly, TJ. Wind does not change the heel to toe size, just like the fucking lights in Oklahoma City do not change dark hair to blonde hair. I mean, these guys think they're so creative and clever with their ridiculous allegations of some of these things. If it doesn't fit, they will find a way to make it fit. Just like they made it fit that Daniel Holtzclaw raped Sherry Ellis when Sherry Ellis said that the cop that raped her was a short black man. And they turned Daniel into a short black man to get the conviction on her charges.
Yeah, the one Janie Liggins accused was blonde with bad skin.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Well, the one that Janie Liggins was assaulted by was blonde, but the explanation for the blonde was because of the lights. Those overhead lights wash everybody's hair out and make their dark hair look blonde. That's what they said. That's what's testified to at the trial. So it's just, thank God Daniel was not, sentenced to death row. Thank God. So we're fortunate in that respect. TJ says they've been getting away with it for decades, but people are waking up. I sure hope so. Because I'll tell you, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at other government systems or court systems in other states besides Wisconsin and Oklahoma. And I've tried to look at a few things in my own state to compare to Oklahoma and Wisconsin. And there's just zero comparison based on corruption. There's zero comparison. And it's not just because I live in Utah, because we have crime here. Despite, what people might think, we have horrible crimes here. We have abductions, we have rapes, we have murders, we have, good God, the case that's going on right now about, the 8 passengers case that's going on. Corey Richens, Lori, Daybell, or whatever her name is, that was in Idaho, but she lived she spent a lot of time in Utah, and, so we have just as much horrific crime, or the same types of horrific crimes. We don't have the corruption. I know there's corruption. I'm not that naive. I know there's corruption, but nothing compares.
Not as
But
bloodthirsty, in my opinion.
No.
I mean, the government.
No. And you know, for Oklahoma and Wisconsin, but we're talking specifically about Oklahoma, they are willing, the system is willing to do everything they have to do, including lying, cheating, deceiving, to maintain the conviction. And that goes all the way from law enforcement to accusers, all the way up to the state Supreme Courts. They will not let go of a conviction. And, you know, to know that, you know, in this case, you know, when you hear them say that his own family was not allowed to attend the trial, how can that be? Yeah, I'm just disgusted by it, and you know, that's fine, Sheree. I have no words. Excuse me. My hope, well, and you know what, TJ, you said people are waking up, and I hope that's right. Now, let me tell you why I believe Kevin Stitt, the governor, is a hypocrite. He's pro-life. He will fight abortion and all of that stuff to the bitter end, and that's fine. Listen, that's another topic I'm not getting into. But he, you know, gets up on a soapbox about pro-life and how important life is to him and his family and his constituents. How the fuck can you be pro-life and still fight so hard to make sure somebody, or stand your ground, dig your heels in so deep to make sure that somebody gets executed? The two, you can't, in my mind, you can't have both. Both of those things cannot be a part of your morality, in my opinion. Well, let me just say this. They aren't a part of my morality. I can't stand for one but stand against the other. I just can't do that. It doesn't make sense to me. To me, that makes him, at least that one topic makes him a hypocrite. And shame on him. Shame on him. And I hope you're right, TJ. I hope that people are waking up, because that's the only way there's going to be change. And, you know, we saw that briefly, and, you know, during the election last year for their DA. You know, Galen Gigger, who prosecuted Daniel's case, was running for governor, and he was in this battle, and it got fucking heated and intense. This battle with Kevin, I can't think of his last name right now. Kevin, I can't remember who it was, the other Republican though that he was running against. And you know, it was the best feeling. I was actually watching the Oklahoma election returns that night. I wasn't watching my own state. I was watching Oklahoma because I was determined. I was so desperate to make sure Galen Gigger did not get elected DA, because he had already done so much damage. Although he ended up getting put into a higher position by the Attorney General. But, you know, I was just terrified of having him in the, deeper into the DA's office. He was a David Prater mini-me, or wannabe, or all of the above. And it was scary. But fortunately, Kevin Calvi, I think Kevin Calvi, something. He ended up winning the Republican election, not Galen Gigger, so he was out. Well, then the next goal was in the race between Republican Kevin Calvi and Democrat Vicky Bahena. And, TJ will tell you too. It's a very red state. Oklahoma is incredibly deep red. And so to get a Republic or to get a Democratic DA in the DA's office was really exciting, you know, just because, if for no other reason, because fresh blood, you know, new blood, younger, seemed to be more intelligent with a much more even temperament. Because David Prater was losing his mind, man. There's not one video I've ever seen of David Prater where he's smiling and, you know, happy. And you look up David Prater and watch news interviews of David Prater, and he's a fucking maniac. He is psychotically angry, dangerously angry. And watching his face turn purple because he just is a bad man. So Vicky Bahena was finally elected, and we were so excited about that. Now I'm getting off on a tangent, but you know, we're hoping that she can, you know, take more notice of. She's already thrown out ordered a new trial for one or two people who Timothy Henderson tried and convicted. Well, not tried and convicted, but sent to prison. And then he was so dirty. Daniel's judge was so dirty that, you know, he had to resign. I don't know why they let him resign, but it pissed me off. They should have terminated him instead of letting him resign, because then he got to keep his fucking pension, which he did not deserve. Whole other topic again. Calm down, Rhonda, breathe. TJ said, they said my photo was picked out of a book for something someone who stole my identity did. Yeah, that's right. It was a stolen identity thing with you, wasn't it, TJ? I think you told us a little bit about that. Christoph Sedeo, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Welcome. First of all, thank you for being here. Christoph says, Oklahoma is a bizarre place filled with incredibly kind people who happen to be governed by incredibly wicked, power-hungry liars. You know what? You're absolutely right. And I keep saying in Oklahoma, Cherie corrected me as well. It's not the people in Oklahoma. I don't believe it's the people. I believe it's those who they've unfortunately blindly, for whatever reasons, elected to be their decision makers, I guess. So I truly hope they are getting better about, you know, what's going on in their government, because it's scary. Well, all government's scary. It's all, you know, it's all terrifying. I've never been, you know, more uncomfortable with the government than I am now, but whole other topic I won't get into. I rarely, if ever discuss politics on my channel. I just can't do it. But I'm very grateful that we have Vicky Bahena in the DA's office. I hope that even though Anthony Sanchez has now been executed, and I'm leaning towards an innocent man having been executed yesterday, I hope they still continue to work this case, go through the evidence. From what I understand in the Intercept article, there were 5 boxes of evidence that were unused and not tested. That, from what I understand, they never knew about. The defense never knew about. They did the same thing in Glossop's case, withheld evidence. That's a fucking Brady violation. And with my limited knowledge of law, what little bit I understand of that seems to me like a Brady violation. And why didn't that evidence, if there are 5 boxes of evidence out there that were not tested or not used or not, looked at, if that gets tested and something is found to be, would have exonerated Anthony Sanchez, I already believe Oklahoma, the governor, former DAs, Bob Macy, Joyce Gilchrist, all them, they already have blood on their hands, in my opinion. But the blood just gets thicker and darker and deeper and farther up the hands, up to the arms, elbows, up to their fucking necks. And that government, that system, that court system, that criminal justice system is scary.
It is.
Yeah. Estrella, welcome. It's great to see you. Karen Reed is being falsely charged right now, and I'm starting to think Brian Koberger is as well. I don't know anything about Karen Reed. I've seen her name, but I have no idea what her case is about. I'm trying not to spend much time listening to anything about Koberger. I want to try to watch that trial, or if we get to watch it or hear it, with as much, with as little information as possible. I want to try to be, I'm not on the jury, but I want to try to have a fair and impartial opinion watching the trial and just basing my decisions on purely evidence. But I am very cautious about evidence. I am very cautious about evidence. If there's anything even remotely questionable about it, I'm not gonna. I would hang. I've said this before. I would hang a jury I would hang a jury if I find something that I was questioning and not sure about, or I found reasonable doubt about it. I would hang a jury for it. I'm too stubborn. I'm just way too stubborn.
I do the same.
Yeah.
Now with what I've seen.
Hey, TTM fangirl, thank you for being here. It's okay if you're late. That's all right. Better late than never. I appreciate you being here. And yeah, I agree. Under your scars. That's the way every juror should be. I would be a 12 Angry Men situation for sure. Definitely. Because I don't know. Knowing that innocent men have been executed and the possibility that an innocent man was executed yesterday, that's too much to, I need to be able to sleep at night. I need to be able to go to my deathbed confident that I did the right thing. I think most of us feel the same way. I don't recall says, is Karen Reed the one who dropped her husband off at a party and later was accused of running over him on purpose?
I guess it was her boyfriend, not her husband. I heard the story told on a podcast, but I don't know a lot of details.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so I'm just really disturbed and uneasy, so uneasy that an innocent man may have been executed yesterday in Oklahoma. Not surprised, but triggered by it, disgusted by it, afraid of it, because it's going to keep on. It's already happened. Go ahead, Sheree.
How did he get convicted? just on lies and Joyce
Well,
Gilpin?
well, Joyce Gilchrist wasn't the one who tested Anthony Sanchez DNA or evidence, forensic evidence. It was Melissa Keith, and she was also mentioned in Death and Justice. Melissa Keith was with Elaine Taylor. See, Elaine Taylor is the crime lab analyst who played around with Daniel's DNA evidence. I shouldn't say played around because that makes it sound like she was falsified something or was dishonest or she didn't do. I'm not blaming her. I'm not accusing her of doing what Joyce Gilchrist did. What Joyce Gilchrist did was blatant and horrible. She did horrible things that she did with forensic evidence while she was in the crime lab. But from what I understand, they in Sanchez's case, they messed around with the DNA evidence. Again, I don't know. I'm not a, forensic DNA scientist, of course. But just the questions that they brought up in that little video that we just watched makes me, the things that they mentioned makes me question it. And, he was, there's also race to consider. This crime took place in 1996, I believe. And he was, Anthony Sanchez was half Mexican, half Choctaw Indian. So, it was evidently a trace amount of DNA. That's why I would like for Dr. Silkman just to look at it, not analyze it, but, just take a look at it, because we know what he did in Daniel's case with the DNA in Daniel's case. He kind of picked apart the DNA in Daniel's case, which, we all were shocked when we saw what he had to present to us. So,
like the opposite of what, well, I didn't hear it all, so maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but the opposite of, like in Daniel's case, there was a mixture, and because they didn't have all the alleles, but all the alleles they did have matched Daniel, but because they didn't have them all, they wouldn't say it was Daniel. Is that right? They wouldn't say own allele on his underwear or
yeah, the SCO test, the level was SCO. I can't pronounce the word. Case does it really well.
Yeah, I know the word you mean.
You know what I'm talking about.
And but for this, from what I understand from this, it was all the alleles weren't there, but that they pinned, must be him, even though there were some alleles, but with him and his dad, if it was his dad, there would be some.
There would be.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's your DNA lesson for the day from Sheree. No, I know. So wait for Dr. Silkman.
We'll see if Dr. Silkman will just take a listen to that little video and that paper that you sent me and everything, and see if you guys. You guys are great. You've stuck around and listened to my completely unorganized thoughts. And opinions and speculations. That's all. Everything I said tonight is all that opinion, thought, speculation, because I don't know anything about this case. But I feel like TJ said earlier, the shoe print alone gives him reasonable doubt, and it gives me reasonable doubt as well. Oh, wow. Christoph says, in Oklahoma, parents don't tell stories of the boogeyman to scare their children. They just tell stories of Bob Macy and Joyce Gilchrist. I just got chills. Literally just got chills reading that.
Yeah, that is more scary than the boogeyman.
It is, because you're talking about literally somebody's life. It's just, gosh, like if I didn't shave my arm hairs, they would be standing on end because I just that was so, I don't know, that really just struck me, Christoph. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, anyone can be falsely accused, Estrella. And I don't know if you've watched the presentation that Dr. Silkman did for my channel on Daniel's case, but what he said, you know, what he explained in that and what he said was terrifying. He said, no man, when he got finished with, and I'm paraphrasing because it's been several months ago, but when he said, no man is safe at all. The way that DNA was portrayed and testified to, no man is safe. I'm going to see if I can copy and I'm going to see if I can screen grab that, what you said, because I really like that, Christoph. So, Christoph, I'm guessing you must live in Oklahoma, or you have lived in Oklahoma, or I'm grabbing that because I want to save it. I don't know why that just really struck me. Whoops. Anyway, so when Dr. Silkman said that about in Daniel's case about the DNA, it really did. And I remember Jack was listening to it as well, and I was thinking about Jack and all the other men that I know. My sons, I have 4 living sons, and I just think, that's true. Any one of my sons, that could be any one of my sons at any given time. And, in Oklahoma, it seems like you could not even be anywhere near a situation, get accused of it, charged for it, tried for it, convicted for it, and sent to prison for 263 years for it, or worse, well, because it's the same, death. And it's terrifying. And I want everybody to, make their own decision up. Look at Anthony Sanchez's case a little bit if you're interested, and let's, make up our own decision, our own mind. Do we need more information? Do we need if there are 5 boxes of evidence that were never tested, hopefully that can all still be tested. Just because the man's dead now and he's been executed doesn't mean he can't still be exonerated. And if that's the case, if there's any possibility, it needs to be done. TJ says, once you're accused here, you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. If you can afford a lawyer that doesn't work for the state, if not, you're screwed. Yeah, we're seeing that. You lived it, TJ. We've witnessed it in multiple different cases, and they just get away with it. Who watches? Nobody's watching these systems. Wisconsin, Oklahoma. Nobody's paying attention to what's going on in the AG's offices or in the the higher courts offices in these individual states. You would think that when the Supreme Court is getting, asked to review this case, and now we need you to review this case in Oklahoma. Now we need you to review this case in Oklahoma. Could you please look at this case in Oklahoma? You would think that the Supreme Court or somebody on a outside of the state level would say, there's no oversight of the entire system whatsoever. There's no oversight. And that is not, that does not make me comfortable in this country where I'm supposed to be free, where we're supposed to be free, where we're provided the comforts of being innocent until we're proven guilty. And it's not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. And it just feels like it gets worse and worse and worse. People, the media, another whole topic that we could spend hours on.
That's why we have to keep talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. The media is not going to cover the stuff for us. We know that. What they are covering is very slanted to whatever their agenda is or their, purposes are. They don't care. They don't care about the people like they used to. They don't care about the people anymore. Journalism is dead. I mean, I feel like it's up to us now. It's up to we, the people, us, to be the journalists, because when we talk about things, and I get really passionate and I kind of push my opinions, I guess, my belief on things on other people. And I've been told that, well, just because if somebody doesn't agree with you, so you're getting mad at them. I don't want to say that I get mad at them. And maybe that's how I come across. But I feel like I'm trying to justify myself here. I don't feel like it's that I'm just so passionate about some things, and I'm just so intent on proving things, that I believe. And I want people to see it the way I'm seeing it. With the facts.
That if you see, it's one thing to just have somebody tell you something and then you decide they're right and you go tell everybody. But when you've looked at the documents and you see it for yourself, so there's real proof behind what you're saying and not just mouthing what somebody else said.
Right. And maybe that's why I get so, seem to sound so pushy. They got away with it that until they pulled over Founds. Oh, of course.
Mary, that was probably the governor, Mary Fallon. Wasn't she the governor at one point?
Mary Fallon, yeah. So yeah, I'm not saying that this guy was innocent. I'm not saying that. I'm not going, I'm not trying to die on that hill. I am saying, though, that I believe, like TJ, that there is reasonable doubt for me. And it's disturbing and it's scary. And now a man is dead. And I just hope that his team, his supporters, the death penalty program that was working with him, I hope that they somehow, if they investigate, I hope that they can still keep testing, because I think he at least deserves that. He at least deserves that much to, posthumously be exonerated. Christoph, indeed, I know Oklahoma. One day I'll share more of my life with you guys, and it will make sense why I check in here. Thanks for what you do. I'm honored if you screen grab my comment. Blessings. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely going to be saved for sure. Thank you. And you know what, Christoph, I have a Discord. I don't know if I don't. I know I've had a couple of new members this last few days. If you didn't join the Discord, Cherie, is it possible for you to grab that link?
It is possible. I'll do it.
Thank you so much. Cherie's going to drop the link to our Discord. And listen, if you have things you want to share, anybody really in my Discord. But, if you wanted to have a private conversation there, Christoph, whenever you're feeling up to it, or if you want to share bits and pieces of it privately, if you don't ever want to talk about it with us privately or anyway, that's okay too. But just know that you're welcome at any time to share whatever you would like to share with us. And the more we hear from Oklahomans, the more we're not shocked anymore, but the more interested we are. Intense, yes, I get it, Rhonda. Thank you. Under your stars. Estrella says most people trust the media and government, and I don't understand that. I can't understand that. How? I don't know. Again, I just don't. And it's not that I'm an anarchist and I'm not anti, it's not that. It's just that I've seen so much, I've read and not investigated, but researched so much corruptness that it's hard to just trust them at face value. You can't, I don't think that's good for anybody to do. I think nobody should trust the media for sure, or the government just at face value because of who they are. That's silly to me. So, Under Your Scars says, I have a daughter-in-law and call her an asshole. She asks advice and then asks online and wherever, and does her own thing anyway. Yeah, well, yeah, that happens too. I get it. Oh gosh. TJ, that's foul play. And Estrella says we can see it for what it really is. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's because we are activists of one thing or another regarding the legal system or the justice system, criminal justice system. Maybe, my daughter, she questions a lot of things, but she's not deep into investigating and researching like I am, but she's smart enough to know, that, well, she learned from me, of course, but, she's smart enough to know, to question things, but not all people are. Not all people are. They're just content to only get their information from the news on TV, mainstream media, or, trash magazines or rag magazine, whatever they call those, tabloids, and believe what they're reading. And most of us here aren't like that. We're more inquisitive. We're more likely to dig a little bit more. And, so Star Lily, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm late. Who was executed? And Cherie just said, or I don't recall, just said Anthony Sanchez in Oklahoma. And Under Your Scars, for me, I'm obsessed with injustice. Yeah, we are too. We are too. I think everybody that's here is, honestly. Otherwise we wouldn't all be here. Right? So, Estrella said, I trusted the justice system until I experienced it firsthand. Well, there's another story. I don't know what it is, but clearly you have a story, and whatever it was, I'm very sorry. Oh, no. Not Richard. Oh, God, that will be a horrible day. Every day that we don't hear anything about Richard's case is actually a better day for me, because I'm so scared. I'm so scared of what's going to happen.
When I listened to the news clip right before the show, it said that the next execution is in November, planned for November. I don't know who, but
yeah, I saw that too. And I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at who it is. I'm going to look at the case. I'm going to read a little bit about it, and I'm going to see if there's any questions, because I'm not going to get blindsided like I was with Anthony Sanchez. Because if there's something there that gives me reasonable doubt in the next execution, and the next execution, and the next execution, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Trust me. 99% of what we discuss on this channel is Daniel, and that will always be. That's the way it's always going to be until we get him home and he can be on the panel of this channel. That's always going to be the case. I can't either. And oh, is that right, TJ? He says there wasn't anything on the news until the last minute. Well, I'm going to look at the list because they have them all scheduled out who they're going to execute next because they're so fucking proud of themselves. Yeah, I heard that too. Well, Idaho doesn't. They have the death penalty, but they don't really execute people either, kind of like Utah. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I think it's November 30th. So yeah, I'm going to start paying attention to these executions in Oklahoma. I'm going to be more familiar with the cases. Now, like I said, the last 3 that were executed, I did look at them, and these guys were, well, I'm not going to say they were admitting their guilt necessarily. I don't remember who any of them are, to be fair. But I didn't see any of them that were saying, I'm innocent, I didn't do it, it wasn't, I'm an innocent. I never saw any of the 3 of them say anything like that. So I didn't look at it. But I'm telling you what, I'm going to be paying very close attention to the next ones.
I just looked up the one in November is Philip Hancock. I don't know anything about him, but
okay.
We'll
look.
Yeah,
we'll look and see if there's any question to see. Yes, startlingly, we kind of talked about that in the very beginning, that the top 3 states for executions, or the most executions, and I didn't pay attention to the order of who had the most. I think it's actually Alabama, if you want to know the truth, which I never hear about, oddly enough. Maybe Texas, but anyway. The 3 top states for executions are Texas, Alabama, and Oklahoma. I only ever hear about Oklahoma, but I'm focused on Oklahoma, so that's probably why. So, again, I apologize for the disorganization of this tonight. It was just really hard to keep my thoughts. I mean, I could never organize them to keep them straight. But I just needed to talk about it, and it's like I said in the description. If I have to do it alone, I'll do it alone. The rest of the panel, we're all had previous plans, and they couldn't make it, and that's okay. My soul twin sister Cherie is available. Yes, I love her, and. But even if she hadn't been able to make it, I would have just got up here and rambled on myself because I just needed to talk about it, I guess. I just needed to spit out, what was souring in my stomach over this, because I can't stand the thought of it. So,
yeah, it was interesting to me. I mean, learning about him, it's so sad that we learned about it now, but
yeah.
Hopefully,
well, I would like to have been. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, hopefully, he can be exonerated, even now.
Yeah. Yep, I'm gonna. Hopefully, they are going to be able to do that. Keep investigating the case. It's kind of like a cold case at this point. There's a lot of question surrounding his guilt, a lot of reasonable doubt. So just like a cold case, that you haven't been able to solve, I feel like this deserves the same attention. So, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe, or society rather, maybe. I live in a red state that has the death penalty, and I don't get that feeling around here that people in my society, want to see an execution or think that it's a good thing for an execution. It's very rarely happens, and it's very rarely talked about, and it's very rarely even sentenced. So, even with some of the most horrible crimes, that we've had here. So, I don't know. Anyway, just needed to talk about it. And I do too, Estrella. I do too. I'm watching Take Care of Maya right now. It was a heartbreaking day today on that trial.
I don't know about Maya. What's that?
Well, it's not a murder case or anything like that.
Oh, was that something about Florida? It seems like I might have heard.
It's in Florida. Yeah, it's in Florida. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but there's a Netflix documentary about it. I watched it and I was horrified by it, but I want to watch the trial because I'm trying to watch this trial, and to get evidence. But I'm telling you what, the defense is really making it difficult. Take Care of Maya. Yeah, it was a good series. It was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, actually. I cried today watching the trial. It was like literally real tears watching the trial. It was so sad, but yeah. Under Your Scar says John Hopkins Children's Hospital is being sued in this case in Florida. Yeah, they are. I've seen that for sure. That's what I said to Under Your Scars. Big money hospital lawyers. Yeah, they've got it too. They've got all the money they need to defend that case. And now I know why my stomach has been hurting all day. My ulcer. As soon as I started talking about Maya, my ulcer started flaring up. Oh my God. I probably need to take some time away from true crime. If those cases are bothering my stomach, that's a little much. Jesus. Oh man. Well, hopefully I've left you with a few links. Hopefully I've left you with a few questions. Some things to watch and to pay attention to, and don't. What's that?
And think about,
Yeah, think about. I had somebody tell me in a comment section of a video quite a while ago that they believed in Daniel's innocence, but they couldn't watch my videos because they couldn't take another wrongful conviction. And on one hand, I was like, really? But on the other hand, I get it. I mean, perfect example, as it just occurred to me that talking about Maya's case, my ulcer started to hurt. Yeah, I get it. It's a lot. We're already very deeply involved in Stephen and Brendan's cases. We here are very, very deeply involved in Daniel's case. And then we watch these trials. What's that?
Oh, yeah. And I was thinking it gets discouraging, sometimes when you keep it takes so long and you keep getting no's, but you have to keep pressing on because we can't just hide our heads in the sand. We gotta.
No, and that's what it comes down to for me, Sheree, and for you. I know for a fact, and everybody else probably in the chat. You know, there are some of us, yes, it's hard. We can't take another wrongful conviction, horrific case, but we also just can't turn our head away from it either. Especially if somebody's life is on the line. Let's see, let me catch up with some of these comments here before we head out. Estrella family court is corrupt. It's every entity. It is when there's, you know, when it comes to power and money and control, that's a big grab for some, you know, entities, like you said. Under your scars, life is stressful. Too much bad news, not good for some more than others. That's true. That's true. No, and I wasn't mad at the person. I was just sad, because I get it. I understand. You know, I get it. And for me, you know, for me too, a lot of times it's about, you know, focusing on some of these cases that are so awful. It makes me, you know, I gotta kind of gives me a break from my own stuff, you know, my own personal stuff. And I can stop thinking about my own stuff for a little while and try to focus on somebody else's stuff and hopefully make a difference with that person's stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Anyway.
You
Found a
see
YouTube channel that wants to speak to Jenny about the case.
Cool.
Well, I'd be curious to know who that is, Estrella. Yeah, I mean, she's willing to talk to, you know, people to you know, get Daniel's story out. And if she can do it on a platform that's, you know, has the same goals, you know, it's even better. Under your scar, for me, it takes my own crap. Exactly. That's exactly what I was just saying. Yellow Cottage Tales, and that's a YouTube channel. We'll have to, I'll check it out and then get in touch with Jenny and let her know. She's had a baby recently, well, in the last, I think, 6 months. And so now she's got a toddler and a newborn, so she's really busy. Plus she works, and she, you know, she spends as much time as she can on Daniel's case. So I know she's busy, but I'll check out the channel and let them know, and you know, kind of go from there if they haven't already, you know, paid any attention to it or anything. Under your scars, a memory from 2 years ago came up. A girl's dad murdered in Miami. I looked to see if any update and asked the daughter to me a few minutes to share. And in 2 days, 150 or so have messaged her, and she appreciated so much bringing it back to the news. Tag Miami too. We can all do little things that make a difference. Yeah, exactly. His name is David McGrath, and the name of the channel is the Yellow Cottage Tales. I'll have to check it out. All right. I need to go take care of my tummy. I do feel a little bit better. I feel like I've been able to share something with all of you and give you something, you know, if you're interested in it, to take a look at it and, you know, see if you want to learn more about it, or if you just want to take it away from the night and you know, call it good, that's fine too. But like Martin Luther King said, injustice, say it for me, Cherie. I know it, but my head is spinning. Injustice anywhere
is injustice everywhere, or something like that. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. It's on one of my end outros for the life of me, it's left my brain right now. So, okay.
Okay, I found it. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's better.
Exactly. It was so easy, I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. Sheree, do you have any comments you'd like to make about any of the...
Thank you for doing this tonight. Like I said, I learned a lot and just opened my eyes that it happened again, it looks like, and it's got to stop. You know, killing somebody who really looks like he's innocent from what I've seen.
Exactly. Stop killing innocent people. Stop killing people in general.
Until you're perfect, you can't do it because that's a mistake you can't take back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what execution is. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Tea, brandy, and a comedy SD. I don't know what the SD part is, but thank you. That is really awesome. Under Your Scars. So we'll be back on Tuesday. We're going to read trial transcripts for Rosetta Great's case in Daniel's case. And like was mentioned before, we will stay on Tuesdays until Convicting a Murderer has played all of its propaganda on the internet. And then we'll go back to Thursdays. But for now, we're on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Central. And so we will see you then. Until next time, peace out.